Oh, crap. I'm in the screen.
As we head into the May long weekend, here's something that we should all reflect on. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Polyev said the quiet part out loud. In speaking with the Canadian Police Association, he casually mentioned that he was going to make his own laws and use the notwithstanding clause to make them charter compliant. He basically said that he was going to start taking away the rights of Canadians. But he intimated, don't worry, not your rights, the rights of others. Now, when someone tells you that they're going to start taking away the rights of Canadians, alarm bells should go up, because it might not be your rights today, but it could very well be your rights tomorrow. And let's not forget, Mr. Polyev has done this before. When he was Minister of Democratic Reform, he was the first Canadian minister, to my knowledge, to take away the democratic rights of Canadians. He made it harder for 500,000, 500,000 Canadians to vote federally. And alarm bells went up at the time, whether it was elections experts, observers, academics, the media. Canadians writ large were concerned that he was making Canada less democratic. And if you are worried and watching what's happening in the United States with horror when it comes to reproductive rights, just remember his anti-women's rights conservative MPs and the anti-choice movement here in Canada are already thinking about how they can apply those same laws and make it harder for Canadian women to access abortion and healthcare here in Canada. Now, when I was Minister of Democratic Institutions, I reversed his anti-democratic laws and made it easier for hundreds of thousands of Canadians to vote. Because at the end of the day, I believe in people's right to vote, and I believe in their right to democracy. And our government is committed to making sure that we uphold the rights of Canadians, whether it's their right to access abortion, their right to healthcare, or their right to participate in democracy. We are going to do that. So this long weekend, I challenge you to figure out how you are going to continue to protect our rights and freedoms. And I'll give you a hint. It starts by telling Mr. Polyev to keep his hands off of the rights and freedoms of all Canadians.
I could literally vomit if I watched that over and over on a loop. It would be the torture that could get an insane person to admit to anything. That is, for those of you who don't know what you just witnessed right there, that is Liberal. I don't know what her position is. Liberal MP. Let me just double check. Karina Gould. And I made the joke that the gaslighting is so strong. She needs to change her name from Karina Gould to Karina Gould, because that's what she is. MP for Burlington, leader of the government in the House of Commons. She, her, L. I swear it upsets my stomach. And I'm telling you this, and it's not a source of pride. I have a vitriolic detestation for that woman. That's Karina Gould of the Liberal Party of Canada, Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party, accusing Pierre Poilievre of coming after the rights and freedoms of Canadians. That's the woman who's of the party of the blackface wearing, woman groping, 2 times ethics breaching scoundrel who for the last 4 years has turned our charter rights into used toilet paper. That's the same woman who works for the scoundrel Justin Trudeau, who imposed vaccine mandate requirements for domestic travel on plane and train. That's the woman who works for that scoundrel Justin Trudeau, who offered to finance vaccine passport systems at the provincial level up to $1 billion. She's getting out. I swear to you, I'm going to vomit. She's getting out and now accusing Pierre Poilievre of going after the rights and freedoms of Canadians. I'm changing now. There you go. Now you can hear me rage in the good mic with some ASMR. She has come out and said Pierre Poilievre is going after the rights and freedoms of Canadian. Oh, by the way, Karina Gould, you may remember her from such Nazi-loving photos as Karina Gould, Nazi. It's amazing. They expect when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Here we go. Hey, looky. What do we got here? Karina Gould posing lovingly with Yaroslav Hunka, Nazi. Karina Gould, the party of the destroyer of Canada, locking up Canadians for nonviolent mischief charges, freezing of bank accounts with no due process, lecturing us about rights and freedoms that they allege Pierre Poilievre is. I swear to you, they do this because they're trying to provoke something of an unlawful response from Canadian citizens who are just snapping under this gaslighting. Hold on one second. Come on in. Let's go. They are trying to provoke a stupid response from people. I don't know, let's just say the parents of someone who might have died because of the mandates that were required from that federal government, or maybe someone who didn't get to a funeral or a wedding because they couldn't travel because they weren't vaccinated. They're trying to provoke a response from somebody so they can then say, look at how out of control these barbarians are. We need to govern them harder with even more laws. They're trying to provoke a reaction because that level of gaslighting, it can't be accidental, it can't be unintentional, and it can't be lacking self-reflection. It's impossible. Oh, and that scoundrel, Karina Gould, what does she do, by the way, on that video where she goes and she is no better than an abusive spouse who is rubbing the wounds of the victim's spouse in her face. She's no better. What does she do to that grotesque video tweet? By the way, she speaks so nicely, walking through the woods. She delivers her speech nicely. She delivers her verbal abuse nicely. What does she do? Restricts replies. While talking about Pierre Poilievre going after the rights and freedoms of Canadians, the abuser that Karina Gould is, she's an abuser, and she should know that. The abuser that is Karina Gould disables comments so that we can't let her know what we think. I let her know what I think. Karina Gould, it should trend. And then you get your other partner in crime, scoundrel of the highest order, Anita Anand. Look at these God-forsaken lost souls. Hold on a second here. You got Anita Anand. Well said, Karina Gould. The rights and freedoms of Canadians that are enshrined in the Charter are non-negotiable. I'm sorry, this I am filled with hatred. I'm not saying this to be proud of it. It's a bad feeling. It's impossible not to hate a God-forsaken demon that would actually come out and unironically assure Canadians, well said, Karina Gould, the rights and freedoms of Canadians that are enshrined in the Charter are non-negotiable. These mother effers literally discriminated based on medical status and told Canadians that your right to mobility, guaranteed in the Charter, you awful scoundrel, Anita, well, you don't get to travel. You don't get to go on a plane or a train in one of the top, the second largest country by landmass. Oh, you don't get to travel. You will miss weddings. You will miss graduations. You will miss funerals. Oh, you don't get to go into a hospital unless you show your vax passport. You will not get to be there when your loved ones die. These mother effers actually come out and say, what did she say? I can't even believe it. Well said, Karina Gould, you Nazi lover, posing with Nazis, desecrating the Charter. The rights and freedoms of Canadians that are enshrined in the Charter are non-negotiable, except for the rights of travel. Interprovincial travel, where I had to show papers to go from Quebec to New Brunswick. Oh, but that was provincial stuff. The vaccine passport in Quebec, but that's provincial. Financed by that scoundrel Justin Trudeau. Oh, the rights to property, the rights to freedom of association, lock you up, freeze your bank accounts. Holy hell. And disable comments so that people can't let you know what we think of you. Oh my, but it's atrocious. And it's deliberate. It's to provoke. I hate these people. In the truest and sinful sense, I hate them. I don't wish ill on them. I actually wish that they live to 95 years old, and so they can see what demons they are viewed as by the rest of the world. I hope they live a long, healthy life and hear nothing but the echoes of the pain that they've caused other people swirling around in their heads forever. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Heaven and hell, I believe, are the same thing. It's an eternity of hearing what people have to say about you in your absence. Listening to Rogan with some guy who's really blowing my mind in terms of simulation. I hope that they spend an eternity hearing what everyday, good, peace-loving, charter-loving Canadians have to say about them. They know it. They know they are the most awful people on earth. Okay. With that said, before Viva, if Viva blows a gasket, well, what better? Hold on one second. I had the perfect segue, but because I'm more neurotic than any of you might even know, despite my constant talk about my neuroses, before I blow a gasket, I should be sure to have the medical necessities that I need in my house. Should they not become available, or should they become unavailable as a result of things that go awry? The wellness company, people. We don't have a healthcare system in this country. We have a sick care system. I was just looking at Vinny Oceana posting a tweet from Whole Foods talking about all the genetically modified food that they're selling there. He's like, what is this? Genetically modified food? That's not what got my attention. It was the price on the items, like $10 for beets, $7 US, $8 US for beans. Okay, set that aside. We don't have a healthcare system in this country. We have a sick care system. Pharmaceutical companies make billions, that's billions with a B, every single year off sick Americans, which means Big Pharma needs you to be sick to be reliant on them. Abso-freaking-lutely. And just like Big Pharma, Big Government wants you to feel powerless, like they're in control of you and you need them, not vice versa. Oh, Lordy, not today. Speaking of Satan, oh my goodness. Could we have had a better intro for this sponsor of the show? Because it's fantastic. What can we do? How can we push back? Become self-reliant, take control of our health. The wellness company's medical emergency kits are the way to do it. Designed by elite doctors, including McCullough, Drew Pinsky, who you know very well from my channel and me from his. These prescription kits have emerged as a keystone of many Americans' families' emergencies preparedness plans. Save thousands of dollars in unplanned hospital visits, and make sure that you have the medications for when they shut down the world, because they love your rights and freedom so much. They shut your businesses down. They shut your kids out of daycare. They shut schools down. They shut down non-essential businesses. They ruined your life. And then they give you a stipend of $2,000 a month. And then they go out and tweet about how they are there to defend the rights and freedoms of Canadians. Holy hell. Be ready for the next thing, because it might be coming with the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit containing 8 life-saving medications, including ivermectin, amoxicillin, and Z-Pak, plus a guidebook to aid the safe use of the life-saving medication. The kit is prescription only. You can't find anything like it in a store or a pharmacy. Every American should have at least one of these in their home. Ordering yours takes minutes. You go out online, you fill out a form. Because it's a prescription, you got to give some information. It's not available in Canada, people. So I don't know how you get it there, but don't break the law to do it, because they're waiting for you to do something stupid. But bottom line, go to twc.health/Viva. You'll get $30 off and free shipping. Whether it's bird flu, do you remember they tried to float monkeypox again as like the next contagion? COVID, cyber attacks, or drugstore shortages, you'll have what you need no matter what. twc.health/Viva. Got my beautiful avatar there. Look at that. $30 off and free shipping. The link is in the description, and thank you to them. Now the heart rate's low. I'm going to say the Serenity Prayer, by the way, because this is one of those. I'm not going to change evil. They're not stupid. They're not incompetent. Karina Gould, who goes up when someone tells you who they are, believe them, yeah. And you posed with gleefully, like a shit-eating grin that you had, hugging a Nazi. Oh yeah, I'll listen. No, but Pierre Poilievre is the one who wants to take rights away. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm not yet there, people. Good evening. Now, for anybody who's new to the channel, Viva Fry, David Freiheit, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida crumbler. I have been solo parenting for the last little while, and I'll tell you one thing. We had a day of fishing. Holy crab apples. We went to Loxahatchee. I caught a great many fish. Hold on. My kid caught a peacock for the first time, but check that out. Bada bing, bada boom. Look at that. Beautiful fish. And I caught an alligator gar, and it inhaled the hook. And so I couldn't, there was no chance of getting it out. So I just cut the line and dropped the fish into the water. The gator, holy hell. I mean, if you fall into the water, you're dead. I made the joke to the guy who recorded this, like, if I want to, get rid of Pudge,
I know where to do it. I wouldn't do that. I've had that dog for 8.5 years so that she could have a happy life despite being paralyzed. Pudge is the paralyzed one, and Winnie, where is he? Come here. Get up here. Oi! Oi! Boyle! Behold, Winston. What do you say? What do you say? That's it. Bite my chin. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's a good one. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna put you. Well, this is Winston. Say hi to. This is a blind one. If you look at his eyes, right there. There you go. See that? That's one eye that's blind. Show him the other one. That one's blind too. And birth defect, inoperable, best dog we've ever had, except for the fact that he pisses on the carpet upstairs when I take him out of the bed. And I think that's because he's nervous and trying to mark his territory. And I can't bring myself to discipline him because he's this blind dog. So I just keep him on bed the whole night. All right. With that said, I see Barnes in the backdrop. Oh, sorry. Long story short, super chats. If you want to support the channel, super chats. YouTube takes 30% of this, but I love this super chat because it's the greatest compliment. Viva, you are the very personification of ancient Greek virtue ethics. Also, you and Kant have the same hair. I hate those people. I don't like the fact that I hate them, but there is no other human emotion that is appropriate for those people. But thank you very much, Cheryl Gage. And on Rumble, we've got Rumble France. Rumble takes 0% of that. YouTube takes 30%. And we got a couple over there. Judge Andrew Napolitano has a great show covering liberty and foreign policy issues. Would be great to see you guys on his show or to see him on yours. I'll screen grab that. I like Judge Nap. And then we got Karina makes me wish for the system that Robert Pine. Okay, I'm not sure what that is, and I don't want to read the rest of that and have anyone accuse me of indirectly reading. I don't know if that's I don't know. Okay, what the implications of that are. I have to go back and watch Starship Troopers. All right, we start on YouTube, Rumble, and vivabarneslaw.locals.com. How did yesterday's meetup go? Inquiring minds want to know. It was fantastic, Pasha Moyer. It was fantastic. We end on Rumble. We end on YouTube. Go to Rumble exclusively with vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Then we end on Rumble. And we have our after party at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where we take all of the, I think it's $5 and up, tipped questions, and we have a beautiful after party. Barnes, I'm bringing you in, sir. Look at that beautiful shirt. I love it. How goes the battle, sir?
In fact, Good Logic was quoting this week when I got stuck in Philly a little bit longer than anticipated. I tuned into his show and asked him to debrief me, but also his audience about the update on his attempt to ungag President Trump. And he referenced confession through projection. Apparently, he thinks only you said it. So I'm wearing the T-shirt to remind him. It's disgusting to have said it, but it's great. The idea is getting saturated out there.
Robert, when I said on a video last week that my operating theory is that Michael Cohen is participating on the extortion scheme, and someone in the chat said, I think you mean Barnes' operating theory. We've been around long enough to know who originally proposed it. I'm fairly certain you proposed confession through projection as well. But the old expression, accuse your enemies of doing what you are doing, is, it's an iteration of confession through projection. You're back home now, it looks like?
Oh, yeah.
All right. And how was last week?
Busy.
All right, we're going to get started because, Robert, I'm still angry about that woman. She comes out and says, the liberal government is about rights and freedoms. I'll have to get over that because we need to get to the show. What do we have on the order tonight that I'm going to probably disrupt within the first question? What's on the menu for tonight?
She was probably being honest. She meant the government's liberties taking away your freedoms. It's just a different twist on the phraseology there in the Orwellian environment that where democracy means not democracy. No better example of that than Ukraine, where Blinken was visiting a restaurant that's famous for celebrating Nazis. But apparently they took down as much of the Nazi propaganda as they could. Speaking of which, I'll be of discussing Nazis. I'll be on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern with the Duran back live to discuss that, the recent assassination of the Iranian president. Famous last words. He said he had information on Hillary Clinton. But we'll see what all that means.
But hold on a second. Is that a meme or did he actually say that?
That's a meme.
Okay. The meme that's when they get in the chat and say someone died and then they said Betty White died and with that meme because they always say someone died. Okay, so he didn't have anything. He didn't say that. Robert, well, actually, speaking of the assassination of the Iranian president, the Slovakian president, Fico.
Yeah. Not only that, there was an attempt a week or two ago on the leader of Saudi Arabia. So we got a lot of, And then we got, Putin and Xi, big meeting in China. Even Trump took time from this trial this week to comment on that being a very significant and underreported event. So we'll have a bunch of stuff to talk about with the Duran. That will be a lot of fun. What's happening with Milei in Argentina? What's happening in El Salvador with the great populist leader there? What's happening in Pakistan, where they tried to arrest and imprison the populist leader there? All the wildness that's taking place on the international front. But yeah, we have tonight. We got the Trump trial. Michael Cohen testified. And even James Carville was saying, please, God, don't tell me they prosecuted this case based on that guy's testimony. Surely they have documentary evidence, right? Guess again, Jimbo. Then we got the Good Logic download on his attempt to fight the gag order and the interesting way they handle things there in the New York courts. Tyson loses. Some people in the live chat at vivabarneslaw.locals.com were saying, which Tyson? If they lost, and we're celebrating it, that's only one Tyson. It ain't Mike Tyson. It's Tyson Foods lost in court this week. We have when is your name protected from the Fourth Amendment? We have a big Second Amendment win out of the Ninth Circuit, no less. We got Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, NDAs, wines, and the divorce that just won't end. We got the law of deepfakes, trying to regulate and restrict that in Arizona, but are they going to encroach on the First Amendment? We got, they want to force local libraries to carry and make sure your kids at your school library have access to pervert books, because that's their new obsession. They're literally saying there's a First Amendment demand that libraries can't prohibit it, and that they can prohibit you from even knowing your kids are being force-fed this material. Then we've got what happens when your kids are from Ukraine, end up in the United States, the other parent's in Paris, and there's a dispute where they're trying to enforce a Ukrainian court order in the United States. We had a case that decided that this week in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. We got Rumble versus Google, the part 2, the sequel. We got the Karen Reed trial, thanks to members of the board who suggested I take a look at whether this is a Copland style conspiracy like the film Copland. Robert Kennedy is going back after Facebook, suing them for censoring his political advertisement, and he may be suing CNN over the debate issues, and he has additional lawsuits coming down potentially on ballot access issues. And then we have the Biden family and the Biden administration's ongoing conspiracy against farmers, with an update as well on Amos Miller and the illegally imprisoned farmers in Pennsylvania, who I was up meeting this past week. So we got a full load tonight.
Well, let's I was going to make a segue into the Stormy Daniels testimony, but I won't, because that would be crass. I already did it. Well, let's start with the Trump trial. We'll start with that, flesh it out, talk about Joe Neerman, then we'll head over to Rumble. So yeah, as if the Stormy Daniels testimony didn't go bad enough, Michael Cohen testified last week, and I posted a clip from MSNBC because it's so idiotic, it's beyond words, where their legal experts are saying, yeah, his testimony in chief was quite good, but it really started to come apart in cross-examination. I'm like, oh, so when he knows the questions and the answers and has been prepped by a friendly prosecutor, it goes well, and then the second he's not, it goes badly. The theory of the case that they have to prove in order to bring the felony 34 charges against Trump are that he directed the overt concealment of this payment for something other than what it was, unlawfully to influence an election. That's even assuming that if he did what they're accusing him of, it'd be illegal in the first place. But that's what they need to prove. And the only problem now is that he signed off the checks and he signed off the entries and wrote it down as legal expenses because in his mind, that's what he thought it was. And now you've got to, so Michael Cohen comes in and says, no, when he wrote that down as legal expenses or retainer, he knew it was to pay for the Stormy Daniels, to cover it up, to influence an election, and it was his strategy to do it. The only problem is that Michael Cohen literally said the exact opposite, under oath repeatedly for years, and now they bring him back here. He's what they need barring some document or email or text of Trump saying, yeah, hide that payment because I don't want people knowing for the election, not even for my own wife, hide that payment. And if they don't have a piece of evidence that actually says that Trump, did that, knew that, whatever, they've got to rely on Michael Cohen, who's now recanting on his prior statements that it wasn't legal services. He didn't issue invoices, or he did, but he didn't do any work, he now claims. And so when they paid him his legal invoices, it was actually to hide the payment, and it was all Trump's idea with his knowledge, with his direction, except it's only Cohen's word that says that. I mean, it's a disaster beyond words, Robert. But what is your take of Michael Cohen, who's still under oath right now because they're going to finish up with the cross-examination on Monday?
If I put out there that Stormy Daniels and Cohen were so inviting to cross-examine, that is the kind of people I would cross-examine for free, just for the joy, professional joy of it. My first cross-examination question to Stormy Daniels would have been, is there anything you won't do for money? Let's go through the things you have done for money, because that involves a lot of things a lot of people wouldn't do for money. And then with Michael Cohen, it would have been two questions. Exactly how many crimes have you committed, given how many crimes he's confessed to at various times and then later said he didn't commit? And the second question would be, how many times have you lied under oath and committed perjury? Because by his own admission, he's done it about a dozen times, at least, maybe 25 times, maybe 40. You can't keep track of how many times this guy has lied under oath. And that's the problem. Their entire case depends upon the credibility and trustworthiness and reliability of the testimony of Michael Cohen. They have no other testimony, no other documents that incriminate Donald Trump. None. Zero. Zilch. Zunka. Nada. That's why James Carville was shaking his head saying, please, God, tell me that isn't what they built their whole case on. Yep, Jimbo, that's exactly what they built their whole case on. That's why Alvin Bragg passed initially. That's why even the Biden Justice Department didn't pursue this case. That's why the FEC said there was no case. Of course, there's inherent contradictions in this case, as I talked about one of the last times I was on with the Duran, which is the crime takes place after the election, but supposedly it was done to influence the election, which it could have only done if it was done before the election. So because there is no crime in just an NDA, the only crime is to falsify accounting records later. But that was done after the election. So you couldn't have falsified the bookkeeping records in order to influence the election. You just couldn't have. So their theory is that there was a crime of an illegal donation that's being covered up after the fact to influence an election that had already happened. I mean, it's always been an absurd and asinine legal theory. Also, of course, almost nobody's ever prosecuted for this. But the other problem they have is, it turns out, according to the bookkeeper, Trump isn't the one who instructed that. It turns out, according to the lawyer and the CFO and everybody else, Trump had nothing to do with the payment, the determination of the payment, the accounting for the payment, the bookkeeping of the payment, or reporting of the payment. Well, that's a little bit of a problem. That was the documentary proof Carville was fantasizing that they surely must have. All the documentary proof proves Trump is innocent. There's no criminal intent of any kind, even if you could somehow manage to make this into a crime in the first place. As always, as we've been predicting from the get-go, this is a case of confession through projection. Every crime Biden committed, he accused Trump of doing. It's Biden who's, exchanging favors around the world with secret classified information to line his and his family's pockets. And it's the crimes that Cohen committed. And that's what's become more clear, by the way, throughout this trial. It's obvious by the nature of Cohen's testimony, if you understand this industry, Cohen was part of the extortion effort with Stormy Daniels, with the National Enquirer. They were figuring out ways they could shake Trump down for money on a constant basis. And for Cohen, it was either to prove his worth to Trump, or it was to line his own pockets. And then there's all the other alternative theories that are out there, like, why did Cohen go to great lengths to hide this from his wife? That suggests something else might be afoot other than what is being suggested. So, and then, of course, you have literally the most biased witnesses of all time.
Let me ask you, Robert, what other reason? I'm trying to think creatively. Is it to hide the income from his wife, or what's
It could be a bunch of reasons. It could be because he's involved in criminal extortion behavior himself, doesn't want his wife knowledgeable about that. It's because he could have been one of the many, many, many people who took a little stop at the Stormy Daniels truck stop. Can't rule that out.
Well, just so that neither of us get into trouble, OAN, who reported the alleged Stormy Daniels affair with Michael Cohen, had to retract their story and apologize. And Michael Cohen was running around, doing his victory dance because OAN allegedly made a mistake.
Sue me, Mike. Your reputation is so bad, you don't have a reputation that can be defamed. It's that, but there's actually a legal rule for that. That when your reputation is so bad, there's no way you could damage it any further. Michael Cohen has destroyed his own reputation. Tried to pretend that the reason why he was unethically, unprofessionally recording his own clients' conversations and communication was you're like, well, crime fraud exception. That isn't why you as an attorney are recording the conversation. I would have followed up. Who was committing the crime there, Mike? Wasn't it you committing the crime? There's no crime fraud exception from not recording your clients when you're the one committing the crime, Mike.
Well, not only that, his original answer was, I was recording it to prove to David Pecker that he was serious about repaying him. He didn't even argue a crime fraud exception when he did that. But Robert,
of course not. And then he got caught lying on the stand multiple times. And then it turns out the only real evidence he has tying Trump in is a supposed phone call that he had with Trump to confirm certain payments of Stormy Daniels. And it turns out the timing of the phone call doesn't add up at all, because it turned out that's when he was trying to sick the Secret Service on a 14-year-old kid who was having fun pranking him. And so, I mean, this guy is a complete, and of course, every day he's bashing Trump, making millions of dollars, making up stories against Trump. His own lawyer testified before Congress that, in fact, a lawyer he had released from attorney-client privilege, something Trump never did with him. He's just breached attorney-client privilege all the way through, Cohen. Like they've done repeatedly. The same thing has happened in the D.C. and classified documents cases, constant, continuous intrusion and invasion of the attorney-client privilege. That topic even pops up in the Karen Reed case we'll get to later. The case is a joke. It's a legal joke. It's always been a legal joke. And now it's a factual joke. And everybody got to see it. That what really happened was Trump was the victim of people who are constantly, continuously extorting him, trying to use their access to him to shake him down, set him up, and line their own pockets in the process. And Michael Cohen was integral to that process. So the only person who committed crimes is Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, not Donald Trump. And now a lot of people were cheering and saying, well, this ends the case. It's a New York Democratic jury. No Democratic jury has cared about the facts yet. They knew that he didn't assault that lunatic. They even said he didn't rape her, but then they just said yes to assault, which made absolutely no sense at all. It was because of their prejudice. And then you have a judge who is interrupting at every time. Great coverage, by the way. The best coverage
by Gouveia.
Yeah, Robert Gouveia, by far. Because he's able to read a transcript like you're there in the courtroom, and he's able to add a little commentary and give you a sense of how the witness is responding in live time. He's able to dramatize it with exceptional success. So he can take inner city presses in courtroom reporting and translate it to like you're right there in the courtroom. Gave a great sense of who Cohen really is, gave a good sense of the cross-examination, and made it clear how the judge was constantly, let's have a break, every single time Cohen was getting embarrassed and nailed with another lie. I mean, one of the biggest lies he told, this is what got Anderson Cooper like, oh man, this is not good. This is not turning out good. What did you think was going to happen? Even Carville understood that this was a disaster if you're dependent on Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen. So I've been trying to figure out a criminal nickname for Cohen that rhymes with hoe, because the case is the hoe and he was his own.
Well, he's kind of a coho.
The truth.
You got Cohen is close enough to coho, so you can call him the hoe and the coho. Robert, People were telling me that, floating the idea that he was in on the extortion on both ends. Some people are
Yeah.
saying that there is evidence that he was taking a cut from the recipient end of the
Yeah.
payouts. I think I've
Yeah.
missed that.
Because I mean, the utility to that is, because he was controlling the entire money train, you don't know what got actually paid, right? You don't know what got paid to who, when, where, and how, because he's controlling the money. So he could inflate also what he paid. He could say it was 150,000, maybe put 150,000 into an account, but maybe only 120 went out, or maybe some portion went out and then some portion came back. I mean, the guy was involved in all kinds of criminal scams involving his taxi business, involved a bunch of stuff. Imagine he also said on the stand there was a couple of legal commentary little points other than him making up that crime fraud exception nonsense, which that is not an exception in the way they are portraying to allow you to record in real time your own client. That's not. So you can record your client if your client is trying to extort you, right? Something like that. Like there's even states that prohibit one-party recording, one-party consent recording. But if you're doing it to document extortion, it can be okay. But there was no basis for that. The other part was he claimed he didn't know whether he got acceptance of responsibility in his criminal sentencing for his tax crimes. And that's just a complete lie. He knows whether he got credit for it or not, because that's what the sentence is based on. The judge said so. So so that was just a complete lie. I mean, the guy he would be evasive and lie about anything. And people like, that Klassfeld crook figure, that, fraudulent reporter. He's not a real reporter. Who was just making up a fantasy version of what was taking place in cross-examination.
It's crazy. I've stopped reading it. And I've also just stopped mentioning it because it's not worth listening to. But I love it when Cohen says, when they're asking Cohen, like, you're making a lot of money off your TikTok video, right? And he goes, money is made. I can hear that. Money is made. Oh, it just happens. I just go out there and I sell the shirt with Trump behind bars. I hate him. I wanted to be attorney general. It was so upsetting. My daughter was upset about it. Anyhow. It's Robert. I still think he's going to get convicted. I mean, I hope. I'm going to.
Yeah, that's because of how bad the jury is. I mean, it will require an extraordinarily bad jury with what an utter disgrace this trial is and has become. But with a corrupt judge trying to rig the trial, with a prejudiced jury pool that was filled with Trump haters, and we've seen this in the other DC and New York cases, they are not capable of impartial justice. They are incapable of it. And that's why the trial never should have been held there. And so the venue was prejudiced from the inception. It was seeping with prejudice. Now, it will be an indictment of the entire New York system if they convict Trump.
It's too late for that, Robert. I mean, they indicted themselves with the Engeron case and with the E. Jean Carroll case.
Or look at the games they're putting good logic through just to avoid a substantive ruling on the merits before the trial's over.
So what's the latest with well, hold on a second. One last question with Michael Cohen. Oh, I predicted it in my summary vlog of Friday, but the narrative is going to change rapidly, and it's going to go from star witnesses Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen to we never needed them in the first place because all you need to know is the payment was made. That's what's going to happen next week. So what is the latest? For those who don't know, Joe Neerman, Good Logic, LAWGIC, Good Logic, out of New York, petitioned with the Rule 78 or Rule 72, whatever the state rule is, to ungag Trump because of all of our respect of First Amendment rights. He's accredited media. He's an accredited journalist. It's kind of amazing, actually, because he's a lawyer by trade as well, and he's got a good channel. And so he petitioned it. They gave him the runaround, said we're dismissed right off the bat, and I don't know what the latest is in terms of his progress.
So the filed Article 78 petition to ungag Trump documented constitutionally why the gag order was a complete abuse of the very cases that they were citing. In Gentile versus State Bar of Nevada, for example, they said that lawyers are held to a different standard and have less free speech than the defendant. The courts are interpreting that the other way around now. They're saying if we can restrain the lawyer, then we can definitely restrain the defendant. It's just the opposite. I mean, they're just completely flipping these cases over and over on their head. In Gentile versus State Bar of Nevada, the Supreme Court said you can't even punish a lawyer for going out there and attacking the entire case just, I think, months in advance or weeks in advance of the actual jury trial. And it's a lawyer who has less speech rights in a courtroom or outside of court concerning a court proceeding they're part of than an individual. And so if a lawyer can say that, by golly, the individual can. And so it's clear he's so right that the first court that handled it couldn't give him any substantive response, didn't question him at oral argument meaningfully, and then issued a very short order. So so now he took it up to the appellate court, and the appellate court keeps delaying the proceeding. As he pointed out, somebody asked him on his live stream, does live streams each night or almost each night, depending on when certain holidays and whatnot. He's a religious Orthodox Jew. About, hey, did he think the clerk might be playing some games? Because it sure looked like the clerk was playing some games. And he said, as a lawyer, I couldn't say if I thought the clerk was. I'm sure if I believe that, I definitely couldn't say if I believed it. Which I took it as sounded to me like the court clerk is playing games there in New York, trying to find every trick and shenanigan in the books, like we had to deal with in Pennsylvania, where court clerks are playing games, trying to hide documents, hide information, not file things, not process things correctly. And the same with the Court of Appeals. Apparently, they're finally going to schedule him a hearing date, but the hearing date, I believe, is this week. They're probably praying the trial is over by the time that they have to hear the case, so they can pretend it's then moot, which it wouldn't be moot because it's capable of repetition, yet evading review, an exception to mootness. So I think sooner or later his case will be heard, and I think sooner or later he'll win and establish critical precedent beneficial to everybody.
They announced 6 weeks of trial, and now it sounds like it's coming to an end. The summation arguments on Tuesday.
The assumption is Trump won't testify. They have an FEC witness. But the judge gutted the FEC witness's testimony. And it sounds like they're not going to call. A lot of people thought, why not call Cohen's lawyer? That said that, by the way, he told me that he had no negative information about because Cohen released this lawyer from any privilege, and then said he wasn't his lawyer. And it's like, okay, that's even worse for you, Cohen. So you're telling a random stranger, by the way, I know nothing whatsoever about Trump. That's interesting. Clearly, the guy was his lawyer for that purpose. He just didn't fully ever retain him afterwards. Cohen's even playing games with. He was like, "Oh, I didn't request a pardon," and they're like, "You asked your lawyer to ask for a pardon, but I didn't."
Oh no! It was even worse because he suggested that they were floating the pardon to buy his loyalty or to buy his testimony, and then it comes out that he actually asked for the pardon. But then he says, "Oh, I didn't do it. I did it through Costello, and I didn't do it myself."
Making up stuff. He was evasive on the stand. But you get a sense, if you want to see how a biased juror might handle this, you can go through someone like Klasfeld's little Twitter feed, because they'll spin everything in their own mind in lunatic ways. But no honest jury of any kind could convict Trump. Professor Turley pointed out an honest judge would dismiss this case at the end of the government close of evidence, which will come on Monday. Don't expect this corrupt judge to do that. So it's once again a disgrace to the rule of law in the United States of America. What's taking place in the New York civil and criminal courts. Further evidence that when an actual trial takes place, now people can see why they never allowed a trial on the merits in the Alex Jones cases, right? There were some people you could tell, like Carville, Anderson Cooper, other people who had convinced themselves there was a real case here. Mm-hmm. And now when they see the evidence, they're like, oh, actually, there never was a case here. This was just made up nonsense. And you have to just hate the guy and railroad him in order to convict him. And when even they're realizing it, you realize just what a disgrace and a joke and a mockery of justice this entire proceedings against Trump have been.
Robert, one last thing. One last subject. It's sort of Trump related before we head on over to Rumble. Julie Kelly reported this. It's a couple of weeks old now, but I want to talk about it just briefly because the Florida case is going to hell in a handbasket, where it's beyond not having a case. It's doctored evidence. It's actual doctored evidence. Are we looking at the same thing here? We are. Julie Kelly. Not that, no thanks. I'll get that in a second. This was the infamous photo that was put in filing so that the media could run with it and post it everywhere. And we saw the box that was taken from Mar-a-Lago with these headers on it. Top secret SCI. Top secret SCI. And now it turns out that the prosecution, or Jack Smith and his team, had to effectively admit Well, let me just bring it back. They had to admit that those cover sheets weren't at Trump's place, didn't denote any classified documents. They printed them up and they brought them and they laid this out and put those cover sheets that they printed and brought to the quote unquote crime scene. And they doctored evidence and only were revealed to have done so because I don't know how it got revealed, but they had to admit that, yeah, the order might have been changed. Oh, yeah. And we put the cover sheets on it ourselves. I mean, it's all fine and well that Trump should get acquitted in New York and the case should be tossed in Florida. But when does Alvin Bragg, Judge Marchand, Jack Smith, when do they experience any form of judicial justice?
Unfortunately, the right now they won't. I mean, unless somebody holds them to account, that's why, in my view, it's time to reinvigorate impeachment proceedings. It's time to reinvigorate federal civil rights laws and criminal prosecution of rogue judges, and it's time to reinvigorate taking away judicial immunity in more cases. Judges made up judicial immunity. It's not something ever passed by the American people. It's something they just invented for themselves. Isn't that convenient? Upon reflection, I think we have to be immune. And from some outrageous cases, by the way, including a case where a judge had a young woman sterilized without her knowledge at the behest of her insane father. Even though he had no authority of any kind to do that. And the Supreme Court said, "Oh, that was within his jurisdiction to do." Blah blah blah. You see it in the case that we're dealing with the illegally imprisoned farmers in Pennsylvania. Seeing it in the cases where they're trying to lock up a lady in another case that I'm handling over recording her own proceedings and documenting fraud in the courtroom. So there needs to be reconsideration by the legislative branches to end or at least drastically limit judicial immunity. When we're seeing the weaponization of the legal system in a way that would make even a banana republic look better by comparison in terms of the justice system. I've no doubt this Russian justice system is a lot better than the U.S. one right now, as it's treating President Trump. So it's disgraceful, and it just shows a continuous pattern of deeply pernicious and problematic behavior. And like President Trump keeps saying, it's election interference. It's a deliberate effort to interfere in the presidential elections, not just framing a case for the court of public consumption, public opinion, in order to create a false narrative and false story based on false facts, perjured witnesses, false. I mean, what they did is they doctored the file, created a fake photo based on documents they had mishandled, prosecuting someone else for allegedly mishandling them. He was the only one who had a right to handle them. They did not. And now they got caught, their hand in the cookie jar. And the question is anybody, and this is someone who's not even constitutionally qualified to be getting search warrants and grand jury indictments in the first place in the case of Jack Smith. So, I mean, this is just embarrassment after embarrassment after embarrassment. We predicted that's how these trials would go when the world got to see the truth. That is what even the James Carvilles and Anderson Coopers of the world are now seeing and witnessing. And the question is, how long will this joke proceed onward until the Supreme Court puts an end to it with a broad immunity ruling, hopefully? And then the legislative branch needs to go back in and start taking away judicial immunity in some of these cases, needs to start impeachment proceedings where applicable. And there needs to be, in the next administration, federal civil rights investigations and criminal prosecution of these criminal judges.
Robert, before we head on over to Rumble for the rest of this stream, I want to bring up the Rumble rants while we have the crowd on both channels, because Stefan Og with a lot of G's says, I met Viva in Toronto at the Rumble event. What a great guy, completely authentic, a man's man, as they say. Well, thank you. Stop it. Keep fighting the good fight. Thank you, Stefan Og. Thank you very much. I was thinking, like, if anybody ever met me in person, they say you're and I was like mean, like totally different. I would feel ashamed. So I want to make, thank you very much. That's actually very wonderful words. Good.
For me, it would depend on who I met.
Well, no, I see. That's like, okay. It's a phobia. It's a phobia, an irrational fear. King of Biltong. Good afternoon from Anton's. Free shipping on your Biltong using code VIVA, or go to Biltong USA, Anton USA. We need to build our own store in 2024. Booyah. Help us buy more Biltong. It's delicious, everybody. Jane Catherine Barry won. Americans have been arrested in the Congo in connection with Saturday's night attempted presidential assassination and coup. I saw the video. I have no idea what the hell's going on. President of Iran.
It's an American-based Congolese guy who was orchestrating the coup attempt. It's hard to believe that wasn't with some green light lit approval. Remember, that region of Africa is hotly contested currently between Russia and France and the West. So there's a lot of I suspect that some three-letter American agencies were involved in that.
Barnes, if I may sell one of your hush-hushes, is this the same area-ish that you mentioned in one of your hush-hushes about the terror attack in Russia?
Yes.
Himeros TB says the president of Iran and other Iranian leaders are currently missing in a helicopter crash. And then we got Desperado 98. What a great movie that was, Desperado. Hey, Viva and Barnes, glad to catch you live once again. Gave a call to 7076 Law about the issue I mentioned on YouTube to you and Viva. Jared Tobe. Question for Barnes. The name Reiki Bowman sound familiar? At the risk of disclosing private stuff, I don't know, Robert. I screen grabbed it. I'll send that to you afterwards. Okay. What we're doing now is we are ending on YouTube and we are going over to Free Speech Rumble for the rest of this show. So I'll post the entire thing tomorrow and some clips and snips, which I should really be posting to Viva Clips. It's also on podcasts. So it's Viva Barnes Law for the People on all the places. You know,
this is good from our live chat. CIA invented pigeons. You can tell by the way they love a good coo.
All right. Who did that come from, Robert? If I had to guess.
From this one's from EO Delicious.
All right. That's good. EO's got the old dad humor. Okay. I meant we're ending it on YouTube now. YouTube's had enough of our good graces. We are done on YouTube. Rumble or